performance of council, the more concern I had about decisions that have been made in recent years and the need for changing values, changed energy, and different people at the table of decision making at City Hall.
What is specifically, what are the decisions that has been made in the City Hall and you didn't like it or it's not good for the community?
Well, you mentioned one this evening when you asked me about school closures. We meet annually with City Council. I think there is enormous untapped potential for school boards to work with Council. We have a number of common issues dealing with the needs of new Canadians, dealing with the needs of our Aboriginal community, the health needs of our citizens, growth pressures, etc. But I realized that the way the city has managed growth, in fact, this was part of the conclusion that we made during our 2-year moratorium on school closures, the way the city has managed growth has actually increased pressure on school boards to close schools, because this council has prioritized new developments rather than revitalizing mature communities. Mature communities are not receiving their fair share of development dollars. And then the outcome of that is that more and more families are moving out. There are fewer and fewer school-age children living in mature communities. Consequently, and very predictably, many of these schools and mature communities are suffering from declining enrollment. I wanted us to work together with the city for a few years now. In fact, in 2009, it was, 2010, it was my motion to begin tri-level conversations with the city and the province to review school closures and related issues. Minister Hancock, when he attended that first meeting, described this as a new model of urban planning. Despite that, there are many members of council that have resisted sitting down with school boards and working together to find different solutions to growth pressures and better ways to support the existence of schools. So increased collaboration and real working relationships between school boards and council that many members of this council have not supported over the years is one of my important objectives. Plus, I don't think sprawl, for a variety of reasons, is good for the city of Edmonton. It increases our reliance on the automobile, more pollution, more congestion, as I mentioned, greater pressure on school boards to close schools, and increased taxation for residents of mature communities. Councillors have told us repeatedly that the cost of these new developments is not met by the tax dollars generated. I'm not happy with the way council is spending money. There's an article in the paper a few weeks ago that revealed the council of the city owes $2.7 billion. In 2004, it only owed $400 million. I'm not happy with the very close relationship this council has with the development sector. There was an article in the Journal again several weeks ago indicating that 56% of campaign funds in the 2010 election for current councillors and the mayor came from the development sector, a sector that generates millions of dollars of profit from council decisions and are significantly funding council elections. That's a conflict of interest.
But to be fair, Mr. Colburn, this and current council has done a lot compared to the councils before 2004. Edmonton was a little bit looked like underdeveloped city compared to the our southern city like Calgary or other modern Canadian cities before 2004. But this current council has invested a lot to the city. Some people may argue. What do you think about that?
I think when you sit down with your children and they talk about grand visions and grand plans, one of the important messages you deliver to them is that we have to live within our means. And so my son, I encourage you to have grand visions. I encourage you to explore the world. But I encourage you to keep your eyes on the bottom line and do not live beyond your means. It's quite clear to me, whatever level of development has occurred in the city of Edmonton since 2004, we are increasing our debt load at an unsustainable pace, and council has lost track of the bottom line. I'm also hearing from many residents in Ward 7 in my door knocking over the last couple of months that they feel this council has lost track of the ordinary citizen and the needs of the ordinary citizen. They are speaking to me about roads and sidewalks and sewers and alleyways that haven't been refurbished in decades, sometimes as much as 40 or 50 years. So however much the city has grown in the eyes of some, we have a debt level today I don't see what council's plan is to work their way out of this. I also found out as a trustee last winter, meeting with the infrastructure department at the city of Edmonton, that the city has $10 billion worth of infrastructure work that they have to do, want to do, and no money to do it. And when I asked the head of infrastructure how they were ever going to get a handle on this, he told me they are not going to.
Very interesting. daawadayaal weli waxaanu daawanaynaa barnaamijka khaaska ah oo nagu talagalnay doorashooyinka deegaanka ee gobolka Alberta gaar ahaan degmada Edmonton. Waxaa caawa inoo mate ah Dave Colburn oo u tartamaya xaafadda Ward 7 oo ka mid ah xaafadaha shanta ah oo ay Soomaalidu aadka ugu xoog badan tahay. Gabagabadiina waxaan jeclahay inaan Dave Colburn weydiiyo xiriirka isaga iyo Soomaalida iyo ajaanibta kale ee ku cusub deegaankan Edmonton uu la leeyahay. As I mentioned it before, Mr. Colburn, Ward 7 is one of the largest multicultural wards in this city, and there are a lot of new Canadians in there. What do you know about them, and what is your relationship with those new Canadians, particular to the Somali community?
I've had the pleasure in the last few months of meeting with some leaders of the Somali community, and I look forward to ongoing conversations with them. I visited the African Center several weeks ago to observe the conditions of the African Center, which quite frankly I find unacceptable, given that this is supposed to be a welcoming, supportive environment for multicultural communities. I think the city has allowed this building to slip into a state of disrepair that's frankly an embarrassment to the city of Edmonton. And if we're going to meaningfully support multicultural communities, let's not disrespect them by putting them in a building that is badly in need of repairs, upgrades, paint, etc. I also discovered in that visit that the Somali community has a relatively small amount of space in that building. I think that in the long run, we would like to see an important community like the Somali community have their own Somali center and not simply occupy a few rooms in a dilapidated building that seems more tokenism to me than a real contribution of the city. In 2008, I chaired a trustee task force, a multicultural task force. For 3 or 4 months, we went out into the community. We met with students from different multicultural backgrounds, many of them, of course, Somali. We met with teachers who taught ESL students. We met with organizations that supported immigrant and refugee families. And we asked the question, what are we doing well today, what are we not doing well, and how can we do better? I heard heartbreaking stories of new Canadians working 2 or 3 jobs a day just to support a minimal lifestyle, and their greatest challenge was simply finding an hour a day to spend with their children when they went to work at 7 in the morning and came home at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I'm not satisfied that the city has a credible and comprehensive plan in place to effectively understand and meet the needs of immigrant and refugee populations. And I think we can do better in that regard. I think it's fair to say that racism exists in Edmonton. I know we've had a racism-free initiative in place for some time, but in talking to people that are very familiar with this initiative, they say it hasn't really achieved much. So in this area, I think we need councillors who understand that one of our primary responsibilities is to work hard to create a fair, just, and caring world that respects the dignity of all people, and be prepared to put resources on the table and work with communities to find solutions that will enhance their success in life. I don't see that happening at council today. I want to make a personal commitment. I have made a personal commitment over the last few months that fairness and justice and a better plan to meet the needs of not only the Somali community but all multicultural communities will be a cornerstone of my work on council.
All right, so therefore we come in our final moment of the interview, and my next question answer will be in conclusion for your long answers tonight, I guess. Why would someone choose and vote for Dave Colburn rather than other candidates, particularly the incumbent Tony Katrina?
Well, every government benefits from change, periodic change, different values, different energy, different visions. It seems clear to me that it's time for change at City Hall. I'm not only a different voice and a different energy and possessed of a different vision on a number of areas. I'm someone who has demonstrated in my record as a school board trustee and chairman of the Edmonton Public School Board for 2 years that I have led change in a variety of areas, that I have the courage and the imagination to do things differently. And we need to do things differently in order to keep pace with this rapidly changing world. I have led change on the Edmonton Public School Board. I believe in authentically engaging my communities in order to create change, and I will lead change on City Council, and my communities will be beside me as we craft the direction of the future for the City of Edmonton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dave Colburn. Thanks for coming. daawadayaal barnaamijkani waa barnaamijkii ugu horreeyey haddii eebaha awoodda la idmo waxaa inoo soo socda barnaamijyo badan oo maqal iyo muuqaal ah waxaana ku xigi doona barnaamij aanu la yeelan doono ninka u tartamaya waa tree oo ah nin Soomaaliyeed Xakiin Ciise isagana goordhow ayaad ka daawan doontaan boggeena ssalberta.org tan iyo kulantadeena dambe waxaan idin leenahay daawasho wacan iyo ismaqal dambe oo xiise leh. Wasalaamu calaykum waraxmatullaahi wabarakaatu.
Hope I didn't talk too long with some of those questions.